Hi there. This time, let's make a value gradient in graphite pencil. A value gradient is both a way to test how much control you have over your medium, as well as a way to develop that control. I recommend doing a value gradient first and then a scale second. 3 common mistakes to watch out for are: number 1, having a thick black outline around the gradient, which is quite distracting. So instead, keep your outline sharp and clean. Number 2, having a lot of noise in your tones. Keep your tone smooth and even. And number 3, having your gradient be overly dark or overly light. Our goal is to make a continuous, smooth and balanced gradient that goes from the tone of your paper to the darkest tone you choose in your medium. With that said, let's begin with the paper choice here. This is Canson Mi-Teint. It has a smooth front and a textured back. I am going to use the front of this paper, and I have a small piece here where you can also see part of the name, Canson Mi-Teint. This paper is 160 grams, which is good for what we're doing here. I think this is the minimum of thickness that you should be using. I would strongly advise against using a very thin paper like this. That's 75 grams. This is paper made for use with markers, and you can already see here how it's wrinkling. And if I use a paper like this for a drawing I spend more time on, where I press hard with a pencil, or I rest my hand on it for a while, the moisture from my hand will be absorbed by the paper and it will start wrinkling. For this assignment, we're going to work with value quite subtly, so we can't have value changes because of the wrinkles of the paper messing with our drawing. So this is too thin, not good. And on the other side of the spectrum, here's a very thick, heavy paper, 250 grams. I would also not recommend that for graphite pencil, because you see the texture here. We will have to get rid of all that texture by essentially dot picking or island hunting. So it just will take a longer time if you use a paper like this. So Mi-Teint for us. And I'm having several sheets here. I'm using the top sheet to draw on, and the other sheets are providing padding underneath my paper. Sometimes if you have a textured surface and you're drawing and you put more pressure, the texture from your drawing surface, your drawing board or table, whatever it is, will show through in your drawing. And if you have a few sheets of paper for padding, or one thick sheet would also work, then you can prevent that from happening. What else? For materials, I need to decide how dark I'm going to go. And for this, I'm going to go with a 2B pencil. That is my darkest dark. If I were to use, let's say, a 6B pencil, that goes much darker. So I'm establishing the range with my darkest dark. If I'm changing my darkest dark halfway through the drawing, I'm changing all the relationships. We're doing a gradient now, but we will do a scale as well. This is a printed scale, of course. We'll do that in pencil as well. If the darkest dark changes, then all the relationships from that darkest dark to the other values will change. You'll have to adjust all the other tones as well. So pick your darkest dark at the very beginning, before you begin to scale. I can go with 6B or 2B or 2H, whatever I want. But if I choose that at the start, it'll be a much smoother process. So 2B for me, and then I always work with a soft pencil and a hard pencil. The hard pencil will be a 2H. You can see the points are sharp, very sharp, especially for the hard pencil. generally that's what I do, 2H and 2B for most things. And then when I need to go darker, I go darker. But these two hardnesses span a lot of values, and I only need to have 2 pencils on my work setup, and I know one is the hard one and one is the soft one, or the light one and the dark one. And because the hard pencil will maintain the point more easily, doesn't break as quickly, I sharpen it a bit at a longer point than the 2B here. Alright, so we have those 2 pencils, and then I have 2 erasers I use as well. One mechanical eraser, like this, and my trusted kneadable eraser, which will be very important for cleaning up my tone, for dot picking or island hunting. Then you will need a kind of ruler, measuring device, and well, we'll need to sharpen throughout the process, so I guess that is a material as well. A knife and a sharpening pad. This is just sandpaper here to sharpen a longer point. If you have never sharpened pencils this sharp, check out my video on how to sharpen Ninja pencils. So the measurements we're going to use is 4 centimeters tall and 18 centimeters wide. And you know what? We are going to make the scale as well. So I'll draw it now so I know where it's going to go. If you have a big brush to clean off the erasing bits, that can be nice too. I don't have one, but I should get one. Okay, so this will be the scale, this will be the gradient. I'm starting with my darkest dark, just so I know how dark that will go. And I'll work quite carefully not to go outside the edge here. If I do it cleanly from the start, then I don't need to spend time cleaning it up after. I want to keep my point sharp, or rather have a very sharp point when I'm working along this edge. And I think it'd be nice to get a bit closer. Now the pressure will determine the tone, and I'm pressing firmly but not super firmly, because more pressure will not get... Yeah. This is a question of experience. I know how hard I need to press to reach the maximum of my 2B, and that's the pressure I'm using. If I press harder, I'm just basically going to damage the paper. So the more I draw, the more blunt my pencil gets, and I have to keep sharpening it. But for now, we're still okay. Okay, this is my darkest dark. This is my lightest light, which is just the paper tone. There are 2 main approaches. One is to just go crazy now and generally create a gradient and then clean it up as we go. The other approach is to go very carefully, lightening, but working slowly and keeping the tone very clean as we go. For graphite pencil, it's a quite flexible medium. You can lighten and darken easily. So I will do something in between, going roughly but not too roughly. Holding the pencil at a very shallow angle, and I'm twisting it, so I'm basically using the paper to sharpen my pencil. And the edges, I basically, if I'm successful, I will not have to clean up the edges at all. I can just work all the way until the edge and then maintain the sharp edge we have at the moment. Up here I already went over a bit, but that's okay. What I will avoid, or try to avoid doing, is going too dark over here. So I can switch to my 2H pencil, start laying down a tone, but keeping it light. You'll see, because the point is sharper, we get much less texture than with my fairly blunt 2B pencil. For this first scale, I'm not going to use any blending tools, just the pencil and the eraser. That keeps my whole process simpler. I think it makes sense to master the pencil and eraser first and then add other tools, blending stomps or little cloths like that to blend. Consider that an advanced technique, and I definitely encourage you to explore and test and experiment, and at the same time make sure you can use the pencil with all its expressive possibilities. Okay, this is the limit of bluntness. Now I'm going to sharpen on top of my trash can, which I have next to me. I like having a tissue or a fabric to just wipe off the tip of the sharpening. So now with a freshly sharpened pencil, I should work along the edges here. Very light touch now. Don't want to go too dark. But yes, dark enough. If I see light areas standing out, then I'll fill them in as I go to try to keep my tone as smooth and even as I can. Okay, time to sharpen. I think I need a bit more lead exposed, so I'll take off the wood. I can show this here. So I do all the work with this thumb. This hand is just holding the knife. In other words, I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. Pushing with my thumb and pulling with the rest of my hand. Yes, you will break your pencil points regularly in the beginning. I might break it now, who knows. Sometimes they're also fractured already from having dropped the pencil. Okay. And then hold the pencil quite flat. Let's see. Camera and light position. It is a bit tricky. So quite flat like this, not at an angle. If I sharpen at an angle, basically just making the pencil shorter. So flat. I do this and I twist. And I twist. And I don't need to stop to twist. So I am twisting now. And twisting. And twisting. I'm trying to keep the same length of point, but make it taper continuously. Oh. Here's my new point. Let's get some distance again. It's always very helpful to step back. In this case, zoom out, get distance to see the big gradient, to see whether it's working or not. Of course, now we have a very sudden jump here, and we can probably go darker with most of this. But I'd rather not lighten a part that I made too dark, so I'm going gently, darkening gradually. And in a way, the edges are leading with the tone. It's darker here and it's darker here because I want to keep the outside edge sharp. And I know I need to go darker, so I can make the edge sharp and get the dark tone and then fill in from the inside all the way up to that little band of tone that I created. And you maybe have noticed that when I get close like this, I will turn the paper upside down so I can get into this light band of tone from this side so I can stop at the edge. If I draw from that side, the fact that my pencil is tilted, I'm more likely to spill over the edge like that. And then if I do, I need to clean up that part. The cleaning up takes time. I'd rather not spend my time that way. I am rotating my pencil slowly as I go, just to keep it as sharp as possible. Okay, now here I'm getting to the limit of how dark that should go, I think. And you notice the movement left and right will create edges like this. So you can also draw in one direction, like I've done at the beginning. Less pressure, more, less pressure, more, less pressure, more. Or if we go this way, more pressure, less. Which will create these gaps between my strokes, so kind of creating light lines that I have to fill out, but we're having a more smooth transition on the right side. I'm switching to my 2H because it's nice and sharp. You can also do this at an easel, by the way, which I prefer. But for the sake of recording, this is a bit easier to record. But if you're putting this scale gradient on an easel, then you can step back regularly, which helps a lot to see what needs to be done. So actually, let's put it down here again. So this is a bit dark, maybe it's going to be fine, but I definitely don't want to darken this anymore. And here we have a big light island. And I can soften it out or even it out with a 2H, but I think that tone here is getting to the limit of what I should do with my 2H. So let's use 2B and again sharpen it just a bit. Okay, getting better. We have an edge here and an edge here. The darkest dark is feeling a bit too compressed to just that region, so we can probably expand. Bring that darkness out. The decision when to sharpen is basically a balancing act. And the longer I wait, the more area I can cover, but the rougher the tone is going to be that I'm putting down. The blunter my pencil, you can see now that chisel edge. It's no longer a point, it's a chisel at the front. That's going to create a more intense texture. So for me, I'm going to sharpen again. This was a more substantial padding material that allowed me to clean. Now it's pretty much redundant to clean my pencil dust here. Should just be using that instead. Okay, so it's getting better, but we can still push the darks. I don't know if you can see that, maybe with this camera. I am going a little bit steeper now, because if I'm too shallow and I put a lot of pressure, I'm gonna break my point. So something like this angle allows me to put enough pressure to get to the darkness I need. If I go shallower, I'm gonna snap the point. Alright, it's getting better. Still can darken this area. My goal is one continuous smooth gradation. Up here it's already looking better than here or here. See how blunt it is again. Time to sharpen, and I think I'm running out of lead, so I can take some wood off. And I think this is my personality, but also I am lazy. You can see some dust here that fell off of my sharpening pad. I will clean things like that immediately, because if I happen, see, to put my hand in it, now it's on my hand. If I put that on the paper, that's no fun at all. Just rest my hand while I'm drawing, then I got this big stain on my drawing. It's bad news, typically. So I keep my hands clean and I keep my general surface clean. For a drawing like this that I want to be very controlled, there are times to be messy and wild and dirty with your work, but this is not one of those times. You can clean your hand with the kneadable eraser. And it might be good to check regularly, like look at the bottom sides of your palms. Okay. And then checking, holding a pencil against something light. I have a dark background, I can't see the point anymore. So from top view, you can also work like this, holding the pencil lead against your hand. So it's getting there, but it's still blunt at the tip, but it's a nice continuous taper throughout. That's a bit long for a 2B point, and I anticipate me breaking this point in the next few seconds or minutes, but let's see. Okay, reassessing my gradient. I need to get rid of that edge. And generally the lines are pointing down a bit. I want to get rid of that. So this one, need to be mindful of making my lines straight And eventually they will disappear. I will clean out any texture that we have that is distracting. So I'm having my 2B in my hand, so I'm looking for 2B work to be done. And I think this area is one of those. Very light touch now. Just evening out the tone. And in more ways than one, I am working from big to small. Always looking for the biggest, loudest thing that's standing out, that needs attention. So right now, there's a dark spot here. There's this edge, those are calling out. There's a bit of a dark island here, but I think that's going to disappear as I bring my darkest darks over. As I expand them. I'm not sure if I need to go darker here, so instead of going darker, I'm going to lighten this area. So I'm making a shape like this with my kneadable eraser, and then I'm picking out ideally just the right amount, not so much that I need to darken again. And I want to create light areas, which can happen very quickly. Just want to create an even tone. Okay, now what is the loudest thing? I think this edge. Right, yeah, it's maybe getting a bit too dark now. There's nothing happening at all from here to about here. That's all pure white, and we do need to have a continuous gradation. So I'm going to very carefully now start darkening here, and I think it will be easiest to go left and right. Okay, across this way instead of this direction. So let me bring all of that closer to the camera again. Checking my point. It's pretty sharp, but let's sharpen it a touch more. Okay, my 2H. We're working in here. Checking my hands again, and they're looking good. Everything in here will be very subtle. Okay. So I'm not putting any weight on it, I'm just letting the weight of the pencil press down on the paper. This way I will have to go on the outside and clean up, but that is okay. When I'm cleaning up, I'm working my way from the outside all the way up to the edge. Okay, you can see the directions now, going across this way and then changing. I'm going to even that out eventually. What's the biggest thing now? Calling out. Beat this edge. And then my darkest dark, there's still a band from the very beginning that I laid in. So maybe let's do that first. When I'm doing these movements now, I'm going light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, heavy pressure. Even as I go back and forth, heavy, 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 heavy. So I'm having more effect down here and less effect up there. Okay, we got this little guy here sticking out. And for some of you this will look very, very pedantic. Like, why do you need to be so clean and so precise? For me, this is craft. If you cannot maintain a sharp edge on something like this, how will you do it in a portrait? And there will be places in a portrait where you need a very sharp, sudden edge, and sometimes you need a very continuous, soft transition. So here we're practicing both, practicing edge control and value control at the same time. If you are working on an easel, having this up vertically, make sure to also rotate it occasionally. It will look different to you, different orientations. You'll start noticing other things. So up here it's feeling quite good already. Then there's a light island here. There's this edge, some darker tone here. And then there's the difference in orientation of lines. That's catching attention over here. The loudest thing for me, I think, is right here at the moment. I think from now on the work is just evening out. Finding anything that's disturbing the smooth transition of tone and getting rid of it, making it calmer. So now I'm making quite a long, in a way, weak point, meaning it's very bendable. And with that I can caress that tone here. So it's very, very low pressure. Yeah, see, now I went too far. Happens very quickly. I lightened too much, which means I need to go back in and fix it. So dark island here as well. Generally there's a light region here, so let's fill that in, darken it. sometimes instead of the eraser, because the eraser might be too harsh, I lift out a bit of graphite with my finger like that. Alright, I think this is a good level of refinement, and you can take it much further if you want to. For me, if you get smoothness like this, that is good, that is decent. And if you want to push see how smooth you can make a tone, then take this as a starting point and push. So same thing, island hunting, dot picking. I'm looking for what stands out the most. And the biggest scale, working from big to small. So I have a big dark island here. You can think of islands or clouds. There's a kind of darkish cloud here. A light one here. But yeah, this is the biggest one for me in terms of size and also what stands out. So better. Okay, now that's no longer the biggest thing. Now the biggest thing is maybe the light island in here. Let's switch to my 2H. Working quite methodically on one thing at a time. Okay, now what stands out most is this line. So I'm shaping my needle eraser like a potato chip. And if I do it right, I can align it with that line and basically remove the line. Alright, better. And there's a light line in there. Now what is loudest? Some at this corner. It's dark through here and then jots over. This is lighter. So gonna darken that. And yeah, I think I can spread out the darkness a bit further. I find it very satisfying to remove noise, to create unity and harmony. I'm making a conscious effort not to get stuck in any area, but to jump around. Keep looking for things that stand out as being inconsistent. To clean up the edge, I will use a ruler. Maybe let's bring this closer again. I don't want to create a dark outline. I just want to create a sharp edge. So I'll press harder over here and then lighter on the light side. Maybe even change which pencil I'm using. So now my pencil is too blunt for that fine polishing work. So back to sharpening. As we are closer, you can see even smaller islands and worms, like, for example, I don't know, maybe this one. There are two little islands, and you can go in and make them disappear, integrate them into the surroundings. There's basically no limit as to how fine can go with the resolution of your island hunting. Yeah, that looks nice now. Now, some softness here, so let's do the same thing. I think that is good enough for now. Let's tackle the value scale next.